In the previous lecture, we had covered few topics based on the second module. So in this particular lecture, we are going to start with the third module. So let's get started. Module number 3 is all about web application security. Uh, for many of you might be the very first topics are OWASP, that is Open Web Application Security Project. We'll focus upon that. What exactly is OWASP? Then we will move towards how we can consider the various aspects of providing web security. So this entire module, module number 3, is all about providing security to the web applications. You might be using many web applications online, right? So you might uh, face some issues one time or the other while accessing any particular website or any particular web application. You might have faced issues with privacy, your authentication, your passwords might have been hacked sometimes. So those are few areas which we are going to focus in this particular module. Whenever we are using a web application or website, or in simple terms, I can say that we have to be very sure what is the information that we are transferring with our intended participants, whether that information is confidential or not. If at all that information is confidential, then we should hide our information with the help of many techniques we have already studied so far. We can make use of encryption, we can make use of authentication, authorization, and n number of things, right? So in this module, we are going to learn what is OWASP, then move towards web security considerations, and third topic for the day is cookies. You might have already got an understanding of what exactly this lecture is all about. In this module, we are going to do hands-on exercises also. This entire module is of 12 hours weightage. So we are going to learn a lot of things in this module. We are going to see some demos, some hands-on practical experiments and whatnot. We are also going to see how to carry out the attacks and how to safeguard our machines against those attacks. Okay. Let's start with the very first topic, which is called as OWASP. The very first thing which I would like to tell you that OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project. It is basically a non-profit
सर
organization.
स्क्रीन शेयरिंग ऑफ है.
Okay. Okay, all this time the screen sharing was off. Okay, sorry, I forgot actually.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, now it's clear, it's visible.
यस सर.
Okay, okay, okay. So let's see. I will just give you the breakthrough. This is basically the topics I was talking about: OWASP, web security considerations, and cookies. Okay, so the introduction is clear enough, right? So we are going to start with the very first topic, which is OWASP. So OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project, as I had already introduced you all with. It is nothing but a free and open community. It is a non-profit or non-profit organization. We can say that it's basically all about providing technical support, the technical help to all the web users across the world. Okay, so it consists of a huge community of researchers, programmers, technicians, technical people, hackers, ethical ones, obviously, who basically intend to improve the security of the applications. Okay, with the means of providing vulnerability reports of particular applications. They also go through the various web applications present online. They go through various websites. They carry out the vulnerability assessment of those websites, and if at all they find any loophole, or if at all they find any bug, or anything which needs to be patched up, they uh, put forward the report, the vulnerability report, and they then patch the particular software. As you had already done your assignment number 2, the flaw finder experiment, do you remember what we did? I had also shared one particular format in which you can provide your vulnerability assessment report. If I'm not wrong, you might have already completed that, right? So that is what we are doing as ethical hackers, or we can say that system analysts or system testers. So this OWASP is consisting of all those people from various domains. They work together in providing technical help, okay, in terms of vulnerability assessments, in terms of various bugs fixes, etc. They also provide some bug bounty programs. So without wasting much time, I would like to show the website of this particular organization I'm talking about. This is called as owasp.org. Let me go to the home page. Okay, then I will go to each of the topics one by one. So this is what I'm talking about, the OWASP Foundation. They basically consist of a team of technically qualified people who believe in providing support in terms of technical support, in terms of education. They also conduct various conferences, training, education programs, etc. for all the people worldwide. Obviously, it's a non-profit organization, so they don't charge anything. They are supported by sponsorships and donations. Okay, so what exactly this particular website is all about? Let me show you this particular project. They have n number of projects on their website. So as students, what you can do is you can go to their website and you can check the various projects they have uploaded for you. For example, we had already done a software done practice of a software called as DVW, if you remember. In your last semester we had, sorry, DVWA, damn vulnerable web application. So it is similar to that. They provide n number of such applications for practice, where you can practice your technical skills in terms of hacking, in terms of security, in terms of programming, etc. So let me show you one of the projects from here. You can see there are n number of projects. These are their flagship projects. Similarly, lab projects. So you can pick up any of the lab projects for practice purpose. You need to have a virtual environment where you can practice these projects. For example, a very popular one, WebGoat. You can search this after this lecture or whenever you're free today. What they do is, it's basically a deliberately insecure application. They have created it deliberately so that you can practice your ethical hacking skills on this particular virtual environment. Okay, so don't even try to practice these things in a real website. I have told you n number of times, I have given n number of disclaimers that always practice your hacking skills on virtual environments or on practice dummy websites, which actually provide you applications to carry out your tasks. Okay, so over here, the WebGoat project is basically addressing to that issue only. It is providing you a deliberately insecure application that allows you to carry out your vulnerability assessment tests, carry out injection attacks, whatnot. Okay, so this is a small description. We are going to try and do these in our practical experiments whenever we'll have those scheduled. Okay, so over here, this is the spotlight of this particular experiment and what exactly you can do using this experiment. All the source codes are available on GitHub. You can go there, check the source code. This is the goal. They have provided the steps, step by step, how you can proceed ahead, how you can access these virtual labs. This is nothing but a virtual lab. Okay, we have already done virtual labs by IIT. So similar kind of a thing where you can practice your hacking skills on a virtual environment. Okay, these are the lessons which you can read after performing those attacks and etc. All these steps are provided. So I'm just giving you a demo of this. We are going to try and do this whenever we get some time after our theory topics are covered. Okay, so let's get back to our actual syllabus content. That is, what exactly is OWASP? So kindly let me know if I'm going fast or you need any explanation of what I have done so far. Okay, I can stop and give you a recap of what we have done so far, or else I can move ahead. Kindly acknowledge in the chat box so that I can get your response. This was all about the introduction of OWASP. So if you want me to repeat once again what exactly is OWASP, I can do so, or else I can move ahead. Kindly acknowledge in the chat box. Okay. What about others? Others also need to take active participation. Okay. The second point is also mentioning it encourages developers for active participation. So in the same way, I want equal participation from you all in my lecture. Okay. So let's start. OWASP is basically a free and open community, as discussed earlier. It basically aims at providing security of web applications online. It is a non-profit organization. It provides free resources, as I had already shown to you. That's why I had actually shown the website first, and then now these points will be very clear what I was talking about, right? So let's see, what do they provide. I have written WebGoat as one of the example. I have shown you. There are n number of projects, as you saw. You can practice any of those projects. This OWASP top 10, I will come to this particular point because it's an elaborated thing. I'm going to discuss that in much more detail. So I'm just highlighting OWASP top 10, WebGoat, Beta tools. Okay, beta tools and alpha tools are basically used for testing purpose. And for example, if you want to launch an application, you launch the beta version of the application, share it with your friends, colleagues, or even like-minded developers and testers. They go through that beta version, and then if any issues are pointed out, they can let you know whether so and so file is missing, so and so bug is present over there. Kindly check it, and then you go for the alpha test, beta test, and then followed by the final product. First of all, alpha test, beta test, and then the actual product is launched. And after that, local chapters. As I had told you that this OWASP organization also gives educational conferences, also conduct educational conferences. They also conduct various lectures, podcasts, etc. in various organizations across the world. So local chapters is one of the things that they do, that they provide. Okay. So as explained earlier, OWASP top 10, this question comes for 10 marks in your exam. So be prepared for this. Each and every point is crucially important. So either it may be asked about any of the top 10 attacks in much detail. As you can see, we are having all the 10 attacks over here. So I'm going to discuss all of these in detail. So either in the exam, you may be asked one or two attacks in much detail, or a 10 marks question where you would be asked to write about all the 10 attacks in brief. Okay, so first thing first, let me show you what exactly we are going to do in OWASP top 10. So is the screen visible enough? Do I need to zoom anymore? Okay, okay. So this is what are the various risks of security applications or web applications. Just have a look once what I'm talking about. Just go through it once, just read it once, and then I will come back to it. Just read what exactly this diagram is wanting to demonstrate. Just go through it and then let me know. What are your observations from this particular diagram? Kindly let me know about that. Any one of you can turn your mics on and give me the answer. What do you think about this? What exactly is this all about? This
Sir,
diagram.
sir, there are many ways of attacking a application or a system, and there are many, if there are many weaknesses in it, and also
Hmm.
each attack may impact different types of functions or the types of things that are inside the application. That is, it might attack an asset or a function, and the impact level also matters. That it is a high impact attack or a medium impact attack or a low impact attack.
Correct. Very well said. Very well explained by Gunjan. Over here, we are having multiple attack vectors. For example, the attack can be launched using any of the techniques. We already know what are the various kind of cyber attacks. Okay, so I'm not going into much detail into that. I'm just concerned about what are the various components of an attack. Okay, so attack vectors might be many in number. The security weaknesses also cause a lot of problem for an organization. Over here, for example, there you can see that multiple weaknesses are present in the application. Okay, and their control measures are also provided. So what happens? A simple attack can be launched in various other ways. Okay, there is no fixed pattern, or there is no fixed particular mode in which an attack can be launched, right? So in the same fashion, if an attack is launched in different ways, then there has to be some different type of control measures for each type of attack, right? Similarly, the attack may impact the organization differently. For example, SQL injection may impact the organization in a different way as compared to cross-site scripting. So what we are going to do is we are going to divide all these top 10 security risks or vulnerabilities into various categories, and we will see what are the various security weaknesses of each of these attacks, how we can control them, what are their technical impacts, and what are their business impacts. Clear with this? So all these 10 attacks are going to be classified into various types depending upon this particular security risk. Is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so where was I? Actually, I was explaining the various categories by which we can categorize the various kind of attacks. So we are having these 10 attacks, okay, and these 10 attacks can then be further classified according to the exploitability, the weakness prevalence, the weakness detectability, and the technical impacts. Okay, so what we can do is, as SQL injection is very easy to carry out, so I can say that its exploitability is very easy, right? So is it fine now? The tempo and the audio is perfect?
Perfect, sir.
Okay. So now we can say that the exploitability of SQL injection is easy. With the same logic, I can say that it is quite common also. As we know that SQL injection is quite easy to carry out, right? So we can also say that depending upon whether it's easy to carry out or not, we can categorize the various attacks. Similarly, we can also detect whether a particular website is susceptible to SQL injection or not. How? We can simply go through the source code and check whether it is sanitizing the inputs properly. If it is sanitizing the inputs properly, if it is converting all the inputs into their corresponding Unicode values, all these special characters are getting converted to their Unicode values, then we can say that it is quite easy to detect whether the particular website is vulnerable to SQL injection or not. Okay. Similarly, the final thing, technical impact. How much SQL injection impacts an organization? This is the fourth parameter, that is technical impact. So we are going to divide all those 10 attacks into these four categories. Okay. So let's get back to the very first attack. These are the 10 attacks. The left side one is the older version of OWASP top 10, that is the 2013 version. And over here, this is OWASP top 10 2017. That is the latest version we are going to discuss. Still, many more attacks come each and every day, each and every month. So OWASP continuously keep on updating that. Once they find that these are the perfect kind of a category, they actually divide those categories into the attacks. So right now we are having OWASP top 10 2017 version as the latest version. Clear? So now let's see the very first attack. As I was discussing, the very first attack is injection. Injection can be either SQL injection, it can be path injection. We have already seen what is path traversal, directly traversal kind of attack. So all those injections fall under this particular category, that is injection. Then comes broken authentication and session management. Now broken authentication and session management is all about, for example, if any application is having the authentication at the backend, it is checking whether a user is valid or not. And if any particular bug is found in that authentication mechanism, then it might happen that the end user who is not even authenticated may get authenticated by the application, right? So this is what we call as broker authentication. And similarly, we are having the sensitive data exposure. Now, what do we mean by sensitive data exposure? Whenever we communicate with any application, for example, if that particular web application is not SSL secured, or if that application is not encrypted using SSL 256 or 128-bit encryption, then what happens is whatever data you communicate with that web application can be watched or can be viewed by any of the users who are currently accessing that particular web application. Clear? So this is what happens whenever the insecurities are found out in an application, or whenever there is some sort of sensitive data exposure. Clear? So are we clear with these top three attacks? Attack 1, attack 2, and attack 3. Okay, clear? Can we go ahead? Kindly acknowledge, can we move ahead? Okay. Okay. So now let's see. I will go to all the attacks one by one in detail whenever I start discussing. Okay. So let's have a look at all these attacks and their risks. This is a very useful chart. If a 10 marks question is asked about, write all the 10 security attacks of OWASP top 10, then you have to write these descriptions. I have obtained this PDF from OWASP official website only. So you can download that, or I will drop it in your Google Classroom. You can check your Google Classroom and then you can have it. So using that, you can write the answers. Okay. So the very first thing, as we have discussed, injection. Then then broken authentication, then sensitive data exposure. And after that, we are going to see what is XML, external entity, broken access control, security misconfiguration, cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization. We'll see one by one all in detail. Then ninth and 10th are the most crucial because they are very difficult to guess. They're very difficult to identify. For example, using components with known vulnerabilities and insufficient logging and monitoring. So let's start with the very first sort of attack, which is called as injection. So I'm keeping this active. Kindly go through it once, take 2 minutes maximum, go through the introduction, and then let me know what we are exactly trying to talk about. Okay? So have you gone through it? We are talking about injection, the very first type of attack. What is it exactly? This comprises of all types of injections. Am I audible? This comprises of all types of
Yes, you are
injections.
audible.
It consists of, okay, thank you. So it consists of it consists of SQL injection. It consists of LDAP. LDAP is nothing but your path injections. That is your directory traversal sort of attacks. And then comes your OS commands, your SMTP headers, and any form of injection which can take place using an URL. Okay, so if you make use of an URL for communicating with the website, you have to be very sure that you accept the inputs, sanitize them, and then only send them ahead. Clear? So the very first thing is the exploitability. So if it is in red, what does it mean? The diagram which we had seen earlier, what does it mean? Is it easy? Is it average? Is it difficult? Kindly check this particular diagram once again. Okay, the previous diagram over here. This is very crucial. If needed, you can take a screenshot of it, and then we can try to compare each and every answer. This particular diagram I'm talking about. Okay. So let me know, SQL injection is easy, average, or difficult to exploit. What should be the answer according to this chart? It's very simple, I guess.
तो वापस उस पे लेके जाओ ना एक बार.
किस पे?
इजी है सर, वो लिखा है पर फिर भी.
Okay.
Easy, sir.
Yeah, according to the chart, it's easy. Now let's see once again. Exploitability is easy. Why? Because the websites are having text boxes, right? All those websites which have interactivity in them have text boxes. So we can't limit the interaction of those websites. What we can do is we can add some sort of input sanitation at the backend so that all the inputs can be sanitized properly. That we can do. But exploitability is very easy because you can simply send some SQL queries, or we can send some data, bogus data, through the web forms or through the input text boxes. They can easily get sent to the server. If the server is not sanitizing them properly, that particular text will be sent as it is to the backend, and that will be executed. Right? So that's why we can say that SQL injection is easy to exploit. SQL injection or injection attack is very easy. The exploitability is very easy. Similarly, prevalence. What is the prevalence over here? Is it widespread? It is common, or is it
Medium,
uncommon?
sir.
Medium one. Okay, so we can say that it is common. Okay, the first one was widespread, then common and uncommon. So we can say that the prevalence is common. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens quite a few on quite a few occasions, right? Similarly, we can say that detectability. Again, it's 3, or the level is 3. That is, we can say that it's easily detectable, right? So whenever in the exam you are asked about SQL injection only, you have to write in terms of these values. That is, how is it exploitable, how is it prevalent, how is it detectable, and lastly, what are the various impacts of SQL injection on an organization. So now tell me, what is the impact of SQL injection on any business? There are 3 categories: severe, moderate, and minor. So now tell me, what is the
Severe,
impact? Severe, correct. It's level 3. So we can say that it will have a very severe impact on the technical aspect to a business. Why? Because if everything basically depends on the entry or exit point, right? So whatever security protocol you might be having inside your organization, if your doorkeeper, if your gatekeeper itself is corrupt, what he or she will do, they will allow people to enter into your organization. So same thing will happen if you are not having proper input techniques, proper sanitization techniques, then all the incorrect, invalid inputs will get processed at the back end without any sanitization. So you can even face some loss of data at the back end because your sanitization was not proper, right? So this is what happens with this particular attack, the very first attack, which we call as SQL injection or injection sort of attacks. Clear? So these 10 attacks are top 10 attacks. So there is no particular ordering which is coming first, which is coming at the end. All these attacks are very crucial and very damaging to the organization in their own particular way. Okay. So now let's check if you are vulnerable, if I am vulnerable to injection. These are the points. The very first thing, which we have already discussed, if the user supplied data is not validated properly, not filtered properly or sanitized properly, then this attack can be easily carried out. Clear? So next up, the hostile data is used directly with dynamic queries. If the data is used in conjunction with queries, then it can directly interact with your database. And as a result, by simply firing some SQL statements, for example, delete from so and so, you would be able to delete the data present on the database server, right? So this is what happens if you are not well aware of what your security protocols are all about, right? Now, how you can prevent from such an attack? Our main objective is to prevent our organizations. We are not bothered with actually carry out the attacks. We are concerned with providing security to our organization. How we can do so? We can do so with the help of some techniques. For example, as I have already told you, you have to sanitize the inputs properly. When I'm talking about sanitization, it simply means if I'm sending some special characters, okay, one second, if I'm sending some special characters like this, okay, less than, greater than, any of the symbols, for example, if I send a dollar, okay, what should the server do? What should the backend do? This particular symbol should get converted to its Unicode equivalent, or you can say ASCII equivalent, whatever the backend server is understanding. For example, this is nothing but and LT is less than. Similarly, and GT is greater than. So this less than symbol should be converted to something like this. So that whatever happens, for example, we all know that in HTML scripts, we are having tags of this sort of, right? So we are having these sort of tags, and whenever these tags are being used, the attacker makes use of these particular keys or this particular values as tags, less than and upper than. So what should happen at the backend is that particular server or that particular backend should be in a position to convert these special characters into something else, and that something else is nothing but the sanitized value. So for example, this less than sign should get converted to something like this and LT, and this greater than sign should get converted to and GT, and so on. Got what I try to explain? Any doubts with this? Kindly let me know. No. So basically, the info. Yeah. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. So basically what happens is whenever you're constructing a website, whenever you're designing a website with a database, just make sure if you're accepting inputs from the user, accept them properly, sanitize them properly, and then only send the data. So just have a look once again. This is what we call as an example for SQL injection. Just go through it. We can take example of the very first scenario. I've already shown these sort of examples before also, but just have a look once again, go through it and let me know what exactly is happening. Take 2 minutes, not more than that, and let me know what exactly is happening. Scenario number 1 I'm talking about. So what exactly is happening in scenario number 1? Anyone with the answers? Any answers? Jinal, Tejaswini, Kajal? What exactly is happening in scenario number 1?
सर हम लोग सारे कस्टमर आईडी निकाल रहे हैं।
ओके, सो यहाँ पे कलर डिफरेंस दिख रहा है आपको ब्लैक एंड रेड में? इफ आई जूम इट वंस अगेन,
यस सर, यहाँ पे एसक्यूएल इंजेक्शन किया गया है,
हाँ
लाइक
तो
वेयर
कैसे
आईडी
किया?
इज इक्वल टू सारे के सारे आईडी।
करेक्ट. So basically, this request get parameter is the actual query which is being fetched from the website. जब भी हम लोग plus लिख रहे हैं, it is nothing but it is fetched from the get parameter, right? So what the attacker can do is, instead of this particular parameter within this black quote, black single quote, what they can do is they can change or modify this particular statement somehow. If they do something like this, for example, यहाँ पे देखो, इस example से clear हो जाएगा. So if they do something like this, I have already shown you n number of times that the website may understand single quotes, it may understand double quotes, or it may even understand dashes in separate, in different manner. So for example, you all know that SQL query will be something like this. Suppose this is the SQL statement I am talking about. It will be something like this: insert into so and so, right? And it will be inside double quotes or single quotes. Clear? So if the code is developed using a single quote, then the attacker will keep on trying with single quotes. Over here, you can see that this is a statement. For example, this is a SQL statement: insert into so and so. If the attacker sends some value, for example, this or 1 equal to 1. So now tell me what will happen. If I send 1 equal to 1, what can happen? Is it a valid statement or not? This is what is being expected from the backend server. Anything between these double quotes will be taken as input. So now, as an input, I am sending this. So what can happen? When the server will stop accepting any further input, it always returns true. Very well said by Rishikesh. Why it returns true? Because see, this is the input which I require. If I send the input which is already having a single quote over here, then what can happen is, at that particular instant, the SQL query is complete. Whatever is present after that, for example, or 1 equal to 1, whatever is present after that, it will obviously always give me a true value. So whenever in a statement, whenever in an instruction, if I'm saying either this or that, so if any of the instruction matches, then I will get access to the website. So the same drawback or vulnerability is exploited by the attacker. What he or she does is, he sends something like this, a skillfully crafted message like this, and checks how the website is reacting to it. If the website is popping up some database error, then the attacker will come to a conclusion that this particular website is vulnerable to SQL injection, and then he or she will carry out the actual SQL queries. He or she can send select star from so and so, select all the databases and so and so. We have already done such experiments in the past. You can check your classroom, you will get the links for those. Okay, so this is how we carry out SQL injection in the real life. So are you clear with this? The very first attack we have discussed so far. I'm going slow intentionally because I want to focus on each and every aspect of these attacks. Okay, so kindly let me know if it is clear so that I can move ahead and discuss the other attacks. Okay, if you want any further explanation from my side, I'll do it. Clear enough? Okay. 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 Thank you. So let's get back to the second type of attack, which is called as broken authentication. Now, as you can see, again, we are having these classifications of broken authentication as well. Broken authentication, again, falls under third category of exploitability. That is, it is again very easy to exploit. What exactly is broken authentication? For example, the attackers may have access to thousands of hundreds of applications of a website, which can be accessed only through a authentication engine. For example, if I want to access my Google Drive, I would have to type in my Google credentials, and then only I would be able to access my Google Drive. Yes? So if at all something happens at the Google's engine, if at all the Google authentication engine is not being able to properly identify the user. Okay. So if at all the Google backend is not being able to identify who I am, what may happen? The attacker may gain access to the Google Drive easily. This doesn't happen in real life because Google is very capable of providing authentication engines. They have their own single sign-on system, so it is really difficult to crack Google. But somehow, just imagine that I get access to Google, I break into the Google engine, and because it happened because of some broken authentication or some piece of code which is allowing me or bypassing my authentication, and I'm able to access that service provided by Google. So this is what we call as broken authentication. By any chance, if I am able to break path or break through the authentication engine of any particular server, that is what we call as broken authentication. Clear with this? So we can say that this is again very easy to exploit. Why is it easy? Kindly mute your mics. Yeah. So it is very easy to attack. I'm having a question from Bhaumin. If a site doesn't have any limitation on number of false attempts, yeah, on password, then does it qualify broken authentication? We can say so, but it is not actually a broken authentication. It basically is a policy. For example, many online applications, many online banks have a policy that after 5 incorrect attempts, you won't be allowed to enter the particular website for 24 hours. So that we can't consider as a broken authentication because it's simply a thing concerning the policies of the organization, right? So we can say that these are security policies, but those can't be considered as a broken authentication technique. Right? Clear with this? So let's get back to the prevalence or the second type, that is how easily or how difficult it is to find such kind of an attack. Again, it's falling under second category, so it means it is quite common, not very widespread, but again similar to the SQL injection, it's quite common. Okay, because as we all know, password cracking is very common these days. There are n number of applications available with the help of which you can crack into the software system, right? So this is what we call as prevalence of broken authentication. As it is mentioned, it is widespread, but again, it is not that widespread. It depends upon the authentication provided by the application at the backend. So we can say that it's quite common to find such kind of an attack on a website, but it's easily detectable also. Why so? Because if you have a if you install a traffic analyzer or a traffic monitor on your network, you can easily monitor the number of attempts being performed to crack the password. As Bhaumin has mentioned, we can we have something through which we can limit the number of fake attempts? Yes, we can do so. So basically, it is very easy to detect if any particular attacker is trying out any attack on my website or not. We simply need to add one traffic analyzer or a traffic monitor. Nowadays, WordPress websites have those plugins inbuilt. We can have those. We can go through our traffic and then come to a conclusion whether this was a password breaking attempt or not. Here, so we can say that in simple terms, it is easy to carry out these attacks. It is quite common and it is very easy to detect as well. Now, what about the technical impacts? Again, the technical impacts level 3, that is, it is very severe. If anyhow I get access to the authentication server, you can just imagine if I get access to the website server, if I log into a WP admin, that is WordPress admin's website, if I anyhow get access to that particular portal, I can change any particular thing of that website. Yes or no? So if I anyhow get access to the server, I get access to the whole lot of users' passwords very easily. So that is why it is very severe from an organization's point of view. Clear? So again, same thing. Am I vulnerable to broken authentication? Let's check that. Over here, you may have broken authentication if your application, now just go through these steps one by one. If your application permits credential stuffing. Now, what do you mean by credential stuffing? Any idea? Kindly let me know if you have any idea about credential stuffing. Credential is nothing but your user ID and password. So what do we mean by credential stuffing? You can use a
मतलब
chat
ये
box.
ऐसा हो सकता है क्या, मतलब वो जो गूगल पूछता है कि कैन वी सेव योर पासवर्ड एंड आईडी, वो वाला पार्ट?
नहीं, वो तो सेव हो जाएगा आपके ब्राउजर पे. बेसिकली credential stuffing can be compared with your incomplete mediation sort of attack. उसमें क्या करते हैं हम लोग, URL में stuff करते हैं कुछ चीजें, right? So in this case, what happens is credential stuffing is nothing but you are entering your usernames, passwords, etc. and trying out multiple combinations using Google का user ID and password का जो text box आता है. Means you are trying out multiple combinations of user IDs and passwords. Basically, you are carrying out a brute force sort of an attack using your text box. That is what we call as credential stuffing. You are trying out multiple combinations of credentials using the same text box provided to you by that server. So basically carrying out any sort of dictionary attack or any sort of brute force attack using the text boxes or the URL of that web server. That is what we call as credential stuffing. Okay. Next up, if your website allows brute forcing, obviously no particular organization would allow any attack on them, but somehow if any drawback is found out in your application, if somehow any loophole or any bug is found in your application which allows the users or allows the attackers to carry out brute forcing, that is a very severe cause of attack, so very severe cause of impact for your organization. Clear? Next up, permits default or well-known passwords. For example, if you log into a particular, if you sign up for a particular application, they might have a feature where they will check which password you are setting up for your account. If you are setting up a very easy password, for example, admin123, for example, password, for example, admin, then it may point out to you that you have entered a very weak password. You may have seen this, you may have experienced this. Whenever you keep on creating new accounts, they ask you to set a strong password. Why it is done so? Because if you're having a weak password and if anyhow the attacker gets hold of that weak password with the help of any brute forcing or dictionary based attack, then he or she may get access to the server. And if at all they get access to the server, they may further keep on trying to get access to the actual admin's password or actual admin's location. So that is quite tricky and that is quite difficult, but still it can happen. So that is the main reason you are asked to create strong passwords whenever you create account, for example, on Google, on YouTube, on Yahoo, whatever. Okay. Next step is uses weak or ineffectual credential recovery and forgot password process. For example, while signing up for an account, due to laziness or whatever you may call, you actually have keep some forgot password questions as what is my pet's name, what is my dog's name, so and so. So right, what is my birth date, what is my birth month. So if the attacker knows about you very well, if he belongs to your friend circle, if the attacker actually wants to carry out an attack just for fun, then also the attacker may be knowing some useful information about you, for example your birth date. So never put such questions as forgot password phrases, because your birth date is available everywhere. You put it on Facebook, you put it on Instagram. So keep something which is not easily guessable by the attacker, right? So these are few policies which we should keep in mind whenever we are constructing or whenever we are developing a website which accepts user inputs from the login forms, right? So I'm not going into detail into each one of them. I'm simply focusing on this. How do I prevent this sort of an attack? How to prevent ourselves from such attack? First step is do not ship or deploy with any default credentials. For example, your Wi-Fi passwords, they by default they are set as admin or password or whatever, depending upon the manufacturer. So very first thing you should do is whenever you install a Wi-Fi router in your premises, change the default password. Or what may happen, anyone else may get access to your Wi-Fi routers login, right? Wi-Fi routers dashboard. If anyhow I get access to my Wi-Fi routers dashboard, I can easily make out the various internet protocol IP addresses connected to my Wi-Fi router. If I anyhow get the IP address, the whole thing collapses over there, because as you know, you are known to the entire world using your name. In the same fashion, your computer system is known to the entire world with the help of your IP address. So if I get hold of your IP address, I can easily try and launch an attack against your network, right? So don't ever ship, deploy, or send any login passwords or share your passwords with your friends or with anyone for that particular matter. Okay. Next up, you can store your passwords using hash values. As we discussed during our previous few lectures, Unix systems hold the passwords in form of hash, right? They make use of SHA or any other hash algorithm. They create a hash of your particular password and store it in the file. They don't store it as it is, okay? They don't store it in the plain text format. They store the passwords in the hash format. Similarly, you can store your passwords in the hash format as well. Next up, again, we have already discussed, keep your passwords really difficult to guess. So even if the attacker tries to guess the password, it becomes really difficult to crack the authentication system. Clear with this? So I guess these two types are clear. Kindly let me know if anything else needs to be explained. Once again, we have done these two types. I will give you an introduction of the third type and then we can move ahead. Okay. I will just give you an introduction of the third type and the rest we can do it in the next lecture. Okay. Let me drop in the attendance link for today's lecture. Kindly go through it. In the meantime, I'm displaying this, the third attack. Kindly go through it. In the meantime, let me drop the attendance link. Yeah, Kajal, if it is asked in 10 marks for top 10 OWASP, I had already shown to you that you need to explain the third slide for today's lecture. That is this one. If it is asked for 10 marks, write a short note on top 10 OWASP. Then you need to write 2-3 lines or one paragraph for each of these 10 attacks. Okay, for 10 marks. And if it is asked in detail, explain what is the first attack of OWASP top 10, that is your injection attack. Then you need to discuss in detail that we have done in today's lecture. Clear? So I hope your doubt is clear now. So let's see this third type, go through it. In the meantime, let me drop in the attendance link. Okay, kindly fill your attendance properly, check your roll numbers, check your attendance, and then drop it. Okay, so am I clear with the first two types of attacks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so let's see what exactly are sensitive data exposure sort of attacks. I'm going to discuss the first type, that is exploitability. Exploitability is ranked number 2. That is, what is it? In the previous two cases, you saw that the exploitability was ranked 3. That is, they were very easy. But in this case, sensitive data exposure is not a very easy sort of an attack to launch. So we can say that its exploitability is in between the 3 scales. So it is average, right? Why so? Because nowadays websites are made secure with the help of SSL. The websites are now making use of post statements instead of get statements. So as a result, the exploitability nowadays has become little difficult as compared to the previous websites. In the previous model, that is 2013's OWASP top 10, exploitability of this sort of an attack was very easy, because at that time the websites were not making use of SSL very extensively, but nowadays they are making extensive use of SSL and HTTPS for securing their websites. Okay. Similarly, the prevalence, or we can say that the occurrence of this particular attack is widespread. As you all know, this is very common. This used to happen a lot in the past. People used to send the passwords in clear text using get method. That could have been easily detected by the attacker if they are present in the same network. We have also done practical experiments on this using Wireshark. So this sort of an attack is very widespread. because if you are sending your data in plain text using the URL, that can be guessed or that can be read by any person present inside your network. Clear? So next step is detectability. Detectability is average. Why so? Because you have to be present in the network of the same person or the same attacker, then only you will be able to read those statements or read those URL values which the attacker has changed. Otherwise, you won't be able to detect it easily. Clear? So because these things make transitions from the attacker's machine to the server within fractions of seconds. So it is really difficult to get hold of those things. You need to be strong enough technically. You should know, or you should know what exactly Wireshark is used for. You should know what exactly Nessus and every other tools are used for. Then only you can come to know whether a particular sensitive data exposure breach is happening or not. Rajit, the screen is visible. I guess there is some issue with the network. I can see it. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we are having just 4 minutes left, so let me complete this topic. Technical impact. We can say that technical impact in this case is again severe. Why so? Because all these attacks are carried out against the data. As we all know, data is of utmost importance. In data science terminology, we say that data is the new oil. Why so? Because as we know, oil is very precious, it is very expensive, so is data. Depending upon the data, many calculations, many analysis, machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, everything is depending on data. So if we are not securing our data much, then anything can happen against that organization. That's why each of these attacks which are affecting the data, that is having a very severe impact on the organization or on the business. Okay, so we can say that confidentiality is lost in this case if such kind of an attack is launched on an organization, because once you get access to the data, you get access to all the sensitive information present inside that data. Clear? So now again the same thing, am I vulnerable to such kind of attack or not? The very first thing is this particular point. If you are a developer, kindly make sure you don't release your data in plain text. Otherwise, anyone present inside your network can read it. Just make sure you are making use of the latest cryptographic checksums. You are making use of the latest hash values. Don't depend upon the old versions or old school algorithm functions. Don't use DES. DES has become obsolete. If you are planning to create a project, go for AES or RSA in that particular matter. Clear? So I hope this particular topic is clear to you now. If anything is left, we can cover that in the next lecture. We have done 3 topics so far, the 3 attacks. The remaining 7 attacks will be done in the next lecture. So is it clear? If you're having any doubts, you can let me know. We still have 2 minutes more.